So I feel like I've been talking about this for years now, and I'm a broken record. And indeed, I have been talking about this for literally for years, and I do feel like a broken record right now, talking about social media censorship or the banning of forbidden knowledge and forbidden individuals from both the YouTube platform and other platforms such as Twitter. I said, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, the main danger to free speech in the future will actually be corporate censorship, not government censorship. And that's because the power to censor has been concentrated in the central bureaucracy known as places like Google. And indeed, I've been proven right on that. Now, I'd love to tell you who got banned and when and where and what happened and talk about the specifics. But chances are, if I talk about the specifics, I could get banned, or I should say I'm running the risk of being banned merely by mentioning names. If you were paying attention, the H3 podcast, one of the biggest channels on YouTube and one of the biggest podcasts, got their live streaming privileges revoked midstream with a strike for merely mentioning the name of an individual who was finally banned from YouTube. They merely mentioned AJ, they mentioned IF, and there went their ability to stream live. And I think they got it back because they were so big and powerful and were able to raise such a stink about it that YouTube was like, oh, I'm sure it was a mistake. It's always a mistake. I actually don't think these things are mistakes, nor do I think the event sequence I'm going to describe is a mistake. I think it's at least an effort that's constructed on the fly, if not one that was constructed at the beginning. And it's kind of like turning up the pot. If you've ever heard about boiling frogs, you put frogs in the pot and slowly turn up the heat and they don't notice it. So in other words, it's a series of escalating things that are used to control people's communication on these platforms such as YouTube. So I had, I'd say, a friend of the channel get a strike on his channel recently. It was Mr. E, and maybe that's too much of an identifier, and this video will become a problem for me later on. But he got a strike on his channel for a video that was several years old, and so one of the things is that the boundary for what is acceptable and what is not acceptable can shift at any time. It's not predefined. It's defined after the fact. And because it's defined after the fact and you have a permanent record of what people have said, anything can be made to not fit the rules after the fact. And the rules aren't ever rewritten. They're just written in such a vague way that enforcement is up to whomever is doing it. Even if they issue different guidelines, all of a sudden they can go back and strike people's channel for old content. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's set up. It's intentionally vague. I believe that's an intentional thing. If you're very, very specific about what things are forbidden, then people can't really complain when they violate the rules. But if you're not specific, then if somebody needs to be a forbidden individual, then you can just say that they have violated the rules. You determine that they have violated the rules based on who they are. Now let's go back in time. Where did this actually begin? Because I want to describe the event sequence that I've seen leading up till now. I think this actually started back with the copyright crisis on YouTube several years ago. This would be 3 or 4 years ago now. And indeed, I've had some experience with fair use and the difficulties there. People always ask me, why don't you put clips from the movies in your videos? I think it would make them really interesting. I think people would be very, have a lot of fun to be able to see exactly what you're talking about in these movie shots. And I have done that, but as soon as I have those clips, the video is immediately flagged. It's immediately claimed with a copyright content ID or copyright violation, even though I'm using it in a fair use manner. So there's one of 3 outcomes that happen with that. The first outcome is that I get a copyright strike, which severely limits my ability to manage the channel and gets rid of live streaming capabilities as well as longer videos. It changes what the strike does based on, whatever they decide the boundary is going to be in a particular day, month, year, whatever it's going to be. So that's one possibility. Now, luckily, I've never had a copyright strike for using, quote, copyrighted content. But the next one over is copyright claims. And so the claim on the copyright could prevent me from having the movie or having the video be live. So I did a video that compared a couple of effects sequences, one from the old Clash of the Titans with stop motion scorpions, and then the newer one with CG scorpions, and just looked at those 2 cinematic styles. And I had clips from each, and the clips were on YouTube. They were monetized on YouTube, figured they were fine. They made up a small portion of the video, a minute out of a 20-minute video, which is totally fair use. but I couldn't get the video to go live. Now, in order for me to have that video go live, I'd have to dispute the claim. Dispute the claim, it may take 3 months for that claim to resolve. It takes 90 days for the person who owns the copyright to respond to it. And if they don't respond, then I automatically win it. So that's a 3-month delay on a video that I said I would do like the next week. So that's not really acceptable. So I redid the video without those clips in it. At the same time, I've had another video that uses some small scene from Star Wars that I showed, and has some music in it, and I talk about it. And I've had like a multitude of copyright claims on that particular piece of content based on the music, right? And none of those claims were like 20th Century Fox or even Disney. It was random music publishing companies that said that they owned the video. And what they did is they did option number 3, which is the video goes on, but they collect all the ad revenue from it. So while I generate a piece of content, people don't come to that content to hear like 20 seconds of a Star Wars theme. They come to hear me talk about score writing and talk about music and things like that, and then hear the example within the lecture that I'm giving. They're not there for the music, they're there for me talking about the music. But whatever publishing company decides to claim it, they get all the revenue. 3 months later, the claim is finally released and I don't get any money for that video. So I'm extremely disincentivized to put any of that content in there. Now, the reason I say that's the beginning is because that is something that YouTube did to appease other corporate entities, or something Google did to appease other corporate entities, the big Hollywood firms and the Recording Industry Association of America. Indeed, I get copyright claims on my own songs, which I own, because I've published them through some other publishing house, and then through some back alleyway they say that they are going to collect the money. It's like, no, I'm collecting the money directly because it's my song and I own the copyright. You don't. And I never authorized anyone to do that, but it happens, right? Famously, there's a Winter Sun video online with no sound because Nuclear Blast USA, which is part of Winter Sun's record company, silenced the music on the track because they said they owned it. But Yari, the guy who wrote the music, would just be collecting royalties for himself. So it's like, you can't just have this. We're going to collect the royalties and we're going to prevent you from pirating our client's music. It's like, but I'm the client. So you have this sort of thing. That's one of the things, it changes people's behavior. That's why I don't put clips in my videos. So it changed my behavior because of not allowing me to put my video out, or not allowing me to make any money on the content, or generate any revenue from it. So just there, it puts an incentive on people to change what they're doing, and to alter their speech. And because that worked, then you go to the next thing. Well, the next thing was the adpocalypse, right? Which is a bunch of supposedly big corporations said, well, we're not going to advertise on YouTube anymore, which, because there was, quote, extremist content that they didn't want associated with their brand. I've gone through in past videos how this is a bunch of BS, but it made a bunch of people alter their behavior, made them change what they were doing to be more advertiser friendly. Now, demonetization, when you stop and think about it, is just a lose-lose for everyone. The advertiser isn't reaching the audience. YouTube isn't making money on the ads. The content creator isn't making money on the ads. Nobody's making any money. So it's a lose for every single possible party that's involved besides the viewership. But just removing that little piece of money made people alter their behavior. Well, that still wasn't enough. And so what you have this year is you have the, quote, community guidelines strikes. And there's been too many channels to talk about. And if I do mention them, at some point, you know, those battle lines may shift, and then this video will end up being a problem for me, merely because I've mentioned one name in passing, and I've mentioned initials. Maybe the AI will get smart enough to know that AJ and IF are specific things, or Mr. M and Mr. E are particular people. Who knows what they'll figure out in the future. So the community guideline strike is just, well, we're going to directly police, rather than just incentivizing you, just taking away your money. We'll just directly police it, and we'll come up with an excuse to ban forbidden knowledge and people that we don't want to be able to say the things that they're saying and attracting the audience that they are attracting. Now, when you get rid of someone like AJ, you are essentially throwing money away, because that's a big money maker, right? So it seems that it's not really in your corporate interest to do so. But he was chosen as the first big one that they were going to get rid of. Now they actually took JP's. They deleted his Google account at one point on accident, and this was to test the waters, to figure out who you could get rid of without people highly objecting to it. And then finally, AJ was kicked off the platform, and a lot of people were okay with it because they don't like AJ, or they don't like the things that he talks about, or they think that the things he talks about are like bunk and ridiculous, and maybe they are. But the point is, they chose a target that people wouldn't be upset about. It'd be like if you want to get rid of a certain person and see what the public's reaction is. First, you get rid of the people that nobody really objects to going away, and then you slowly work your way up the chain until there's very few people to object to what you're doing. So the idea is to slowly change what's on the platform and change people's behavior and attitude towards the platform, change what content that they're going to put on the platform, because there's this deep risk of losing access to the platform. So that's the entire point. And so AJ was just a signal sent out. Hey, if you're talking about this stuff and you're having people like him on your channel, if you even mention his name as the H3 podcast did, then you are letting us know that you are the right kind of person to be banned. If you're an ally of him, you're going to be banned. If you're if you're a detractor, then you're probably okay for now. But who knows where those battle lines will be drawn? It could be in the future, people that think that they're very safe because they're in tune with the politics of Google may find themselves missing a channel, because those politics can shift at any point. There's no firm line, and that line is not permanent. It can shift and be enforced retroactively anytime they want to. And indeed, politically correct culture is highly cannibalistic. And the friends that I've had who are very, on the left, they get very shocked when all of a sudden this politically correct culture turns on them, and they become the ones attacked. I had a friend. She was very upset because she let her kid get a mohawk. He's like a 4-year-old kid, and he thought it'd be silly. So whatever, who cares? And it's like, oh, it's cultural appropriation of the Mohawk people, and it never stops, right? There, you can never be completely sure that every action you've done in the past is correct. You have people that get their sponsorships pulled because their dad said something racist years before they were born. As one driver, a race car driver happened recently. So once the battle lines are drawn, retroactively, you can be a sinner back to eternity. It's like, well, your ancestors did something bad. Your ancestor did something bad, and that makes you bad, therefore. So everyone's at risk, and that's the point. The point is that nobody can feel safe, which means that you're going to really try to mitigate as much risk as possible and talk about only the safe stuff. That's not why I have stayed away from this subject, though. Obviously, selfishly, I would like to make a video that people are able to watch and is able to be viewed and possibly even monetized. But simply because I've been talking about this for years, and I feel like a broken record. So let me reemphasize. It's a process. Where's it going to go in the future? Well, it's going to go in the future to where nobody on the platform who doesn't meet specific political criteria will be allowed to speak on it, and possibly no political speech at all eventually, because those battle lines will be redrawn. And I think that's what YouTube really wants, is they want YouTube to, rather than be a platform that's focused on independent creators putting out information, putting out videos, putting out products that other people want, and using the algorithm to connect people to exactly what they want. And that's the great thing about YouTube from the beginning. Rather than it being about that, it's going to be another corporate TV platform. And you can see that pushing that. There's YouTube subscription originals. Like people like Cobra Kai is really good. I haven't watched it, and I probably never will. But it's a signal as to what they want to do with YouTube, which is to lock it down and get rid of anybody's ability to speak independently and reach a large audience. That is the point. So the first people you defend are the big corporations, people like Disney and 20th Century Fox. Of course, Disney is buying 20th Century Fox and their movie portion, at least, and becoming an even bigger monolithic corporation. So first thing you do is you back up the corporation's intellectual property rights, and make it such a pain to enforce for the little guy to be able to have fair use for things like that, that people just avoid doing it, including myself. Like I'm a person that had an effect on, because I wanted to reach people more than I wanted to put in video clips from movies into my analysis videos. So you start there, then you move all the way over to where it's just too big a risk to lose your channel. You try to be squeaky clean, and eventually you are indiscernible from the corporate product that YouTube is becoming. That you look from one to the other and there's no difference. There's no alternative voice. That is the point as I see it, because it's hard for me to ferret out intent. I can't read people's mind, but you certainly see the progression. You go from a place where you control people's behavior one way with an incentive, then another way with an incentive. It's like, okay, copyright, okay, people change their behavior. Politics, take away the money, people change their behavior, but not enough people change their behavior. There's still guys like AJ, there's still guys like SM who's got strikes on his channel. There's still all these people out there that won't change what they're doing. We got to get them off the platform. We got to retroactively make them violators of our make-believe law, and then we can kick them off. Now, let me try to sum up this rather rambling video with this thing. So first of all, well, go follow people on BitChute. I think BitChute is the best alternative to YouTube right now. It's the best alternative to YouTube in terms of the way content's presented. It's the best alternative to YouTube in terms of stability and being able to watch videos, but not perfect, because if there's not a lot of peers on a video, it's difficult to watch it. And it's the best alternative to YouTube in terms of the way that the freedom involved in it. So I do have some BitChute exclusive stuff over there. So follow me on BitChute. It'll be linked down below. Follow anybody else you'd like on BitChute. I think that platform will grow, and they'll continue to find ways to monetize it and make it profitable for everybody involved. The last thing I guess I want to talk about from a conceptual point of view is the problems with centralization, which is something I've talked about in the past. But the technical way YouTube works, it's highly decentralized. There's actually copies of videos all over the world that queue up and are sent to you. That's why YouTube runs so flawlessly, is it's very decentralized in terms of the way it distributes its content. But it's very centralized in terms of its rules and who oversees those. Centralization breeds corruption, and it breeds abuse. Almost everything where you see some sort of systematic abuse, whether it's real or imagined, when you have someone like CF giving interviews with the media talking about major abuse rings in Hollywood. The reason that is highly probable, really, I mean, to me, I think it's highly probable, is because you have a centralization of the business. All the business is in one location, and it's focused in just a few companies. The more centralized that is, the more opportunity you have for abuse. If it was highly distributed, if it was highly decentralized, and there were movie studios all over the world, then none of them would have the power that they have to make or break small individuals. Like somebody trying to get into Hollywood, they have a major thing presented to them. They have a major pressure on them to submit to whatever person wants them to do. Likewise, you could look at it with the Catholic Church, a highly centralized organization, numerous abuse scandals, not just recently. You can go back hundreds of years and see problems with the centralization of the Catholic Church. The other problem with centralization, which is actually an advantage to us at this point, is that centralization creates fragility. And this is more of an economic concept, but it works. Bigger companies, like no one thought that Sears would be in the position that it's been in, or Kmart, if you were to go back 30 years. But the more centralized something is, the more fragile it gets. It's unable to respond to changing stimuli, and systemic issues caused the entire thing to blow up. We saw that with like the mortgage crisis. A big reason the mortgage crisis happened was that mortgages became highly centralized, and the rules concerning mortgages became more and more centralized, and there was fewer and fewer banks involved in the business. So as it collapsed into the fewer individuals having control, the whole thing blows up. So eventually, I don't know how that's going to happen with YouTube, but it's probably going to happen at some point, simply because they'll be unable to respond to some some critical thing that happens on their platform. The idea is, I think their plan was you get a large installed user base and then you change the way that they access content. And that's kind of what Facebook has done. Facebook gathered a large user interface by offering a great platform that did what people wanted it to do. And then they slowly changed the platform to do what the corporation wants to do for the maximum amount of money, and not really what people want to do. But because they don't feel like there's an alternative, they never leave. How many people do you know complain about Facebook all the time and never delete their Facebook, never leave Facebook? Facebook data mines the crap out of them. YouTube and Google data mine the crap out of people, and yet people don't leave their social media area. And it's because there's so much invested in it. All my friends are on Facebook. If I leave Facebook, how am I going to talk to my friends? I'm not going to see their updates because they're on Facebook. Same thing with YouTube, right? It's like, why I'm talking to you on YouTube. It's the big audience, right? This is where the people are. And so you kind of have to ride the ride till the wheels fall off, is what PJW said. So if you're going to ride it till the wheels fall off, that's what you have to do. And that's because that's where people's attention are. That's where people are. It's not until the audience begins to decentralize that you can have a lot of this other stuff happen. But once there's some sort of blow up that happens, and I don't know what it's going to be, it could be like some corporate failure at Google, it could be something else, who knows. But I just know that you're increasing the risk, you're increasing the fragility of the system by centralizing it, because there's less things. If you imagine a centipede crawling along, a centipede loses a leg, it's not a big deal. If you imagine a person walking along, they lose a leg, it's a big deal. And so for that reason, there's a risk involved that could be to people's advantage in the future. So that's mostly what I wanted to say about that. I do feel like a broken record, but anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. I do have another YouTube channel. It's focused exclusively on gaming, not to avoid what I'm talking about in this, although it does serve that function. So if this channel gets deleted, if it gets banned and goes away in the future, which it probably will at some point, then there'll be something else on YouTube that has content. But it was really there for much more mundane, practical reasons of audience segmentation. Works a little bit better with the way YouTube queues up videos. So I'll be trying to offshoot some of the content, which I do less frequently, into other channels, so that the audiences are a little more, people are seeing what they want rather than a bunch of stuff that they don't want to see. And maybe this is a video that you didn't want to see, and if you didn't, then I apologize to you, but that's how it is. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time.